Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving deep into one of the most shocking and decisive moments of the ongoing war, the catastrophic defeat of the Russian army in Pokrovsk. What was supposed to be another bold push into Ukrainian territory has instead turned into a disaster that's being called one of the biggest setbacks for Moscow since the beginning of the conflict. The Russian military's failure at Pokrovsk isn't just about losing ground, it's about losing prestige, manpower, and the illusion of unstoppable momentum. Pokrovsk, a key city in the Donetsk region, has been strategically important for months. It serves as a logistical and transport hub connecting various parts of eastern Ukraine, making it a target both sides have fought over fiercely. For Russia, capturing Pokrovsk would have meant cutting off vital Ukrainian supply lines and opening a gateway toward deeper penetration into Donbas. But instead, what happened was the complete opposite. Ukrainian forces not only defended the city but launched a counteroffensive that shattered Russian positions, leaving behind a trail of destroyed vehicles, abandoned weapons, and broken morale. The Russian army entered the Pokrovsk operation with high confidence. Intelligence reports suggested they had amassed thousands of troops, hundreds of armored vehicles, and heavy artillery, supported by drones and air cover. Commanders believed that overwhelming firepower would crush the Ukrainian defense within days. However, they severely underestimated the Ukrainian strategy, adaptability, and local intelligence. The Ukrainians knew the terrain, had fortified defensive lines, and used advanced NATO, supplied systems to neutralize Russian advances before they could make meaningful progress. As the battle began, Russian columns moved in waves, pushing toward Ukrainian, held sectors from multiple directions. But the moment they entered the open zones near Pokrovsk, they came under intense drone surveillance. Within minutes, artillery fire rained down on the advancing convoys. Videos circulating online show dozens of Russian vehicles obliterated by precision strikes. Ukrainian FPV drones swarmed the battlefield, hunting down tanks and supply trucks one by one. Russian troops, caught in the chaos, had little room to maneuver or retreat. The defeat was amplified by poor communication among Russian units. Reports indicate that several battalions lost contact with their command centers due to electronic warfare by Ukrainian forces. Without coordination, units became isolated and surrounded. Some Russian soldiers reportedly fled their positions, leaving behind ammunition and even wounded comrades. The psychological toll was immense. What was supposed to be a triumphant assault turned into panic and confusion. Another key factor was Ukraine's mastery of modern warfare tactics. Unlike the early months of the war, Ukraine now combines intelligence from Western satellites, real-time drone feeds, and precision weaponry like HIMARS to create layered defense and offense systems. Each Russian movement was detected, analyzed, and countered almost immediately. In contrast, Russian tactics seemed outdated, relying on brute force, massive bombardment, and human waves of soldiers that simply could not sustain themselves against modern defenses. The destruction at Pokrovsk became symbolic of a larger trend: Russia's dwindling ability to mount effective offensives. With mounting losses in manpower and equipment, the Kremlin's forces are increasingly dependent on poorly trained recruits and outdated Soviet-era vehicles. Ukrainian commanders have revealed that many of the tanks destroyed were T-62s and T-55s, relics from decades past, no match for modern anti-tank systems. Even Russia's so-called elite units have been suffering devastating losses, suggesting that the pool of experienced soldiers is rapidly shrinking. As the fighting raged on, Ukrainian drone units played a pivotal role. Small, cheap, and deadly drones turned the battlefield into a nightmare for Russian troops. Drone footage captured Russian trenches being systematically targeted, soldiers fleeing under bombardment, and armored vehicles destroyed before they even reached the front line. For every Russian attack, there was an immediate and deadly counter. It's clear that Ukraine's technological edge and battlefield intelligence have become game-changing factors. The scale of Russian losses is staggering. According to several military analysts, hundreds of soldiers were killed or captured in just a few days, while dozens of armored vehicles were destroyed. Some sources describe Pokrovsk as a graveyard of Russian armor. The impact on morale is devastating. Russian soldiers have been posting desperate messages online, complaining about lack of ammunition, poor leadership, and senseless orders. Many claim they were sent into battle without proper preparation or understanding of the enemy's strength. This defeat also exposes deeper cracks within the Russian command structure. Intelligence failures, lack of coordination, and political pressure from Moscow have created a toxic environment in which officers are afraid to report bad news. Many analysts believe that the obsession with showing progress to the Kremlin has led commanders to launch reckless offensives without proper planning or logistics. The result, as seen in Pokrovsk, is catastrophe. Meanwhile, Ukrainian troops celebrated the victory as proof that resilience and tactical superiority can overcome numerical disadvantage. For months, they've been outnumbered and outgunned, but their effective use of Western weaponry, from long-range missiles to anti-drone systems, has changed the dynamic of the war. The success at Pokrovsk boosts not just military confidence, but also international support. Western allies view this as validation that their continued aid is making a decisive difference on the battlefield. For Russia, however, the fallout is immense. Domestically, the Kremlin is struggling to maintain control over the narrative. State media has tried to downplay the losses, calling them tactical repositioning or planned withdrawals, but independent observers and leaked footage tell a different story. Russian social media is filled with outrage and disbelief. Families of soldiers are demanding answers, and some even accuse military leaders of incompetence. The defeat has intensified political pressure on Putin, whose promises of victory now sound hollow to many Russians. The Pokrovsk failure also damages Russia's international image. The perception of Russian military strength has been steadily declining, and this latest defeat reinforces the notion that Moscow's forces are exhausted and losing control. Analysts suggest that Russia's once feared army is now a shadow of its former self, crippled by corruption, logistical failures, and outdated doctrine. The longer this war drags on, the clearer it becomes that Russia cannot sustain the same level of warfare indefinitely. On the Ukrainian side, success in Pokrovsk is more than just a tactical win, it's strategic. Holding Pokrovsk means maintaining control over key supply routes and keeping Russian forces away from critical infrastructure in central Donetsk. It also provides a launching point for future Ukrainian operations deeper into occupied territory. Every kilometer held by Ukraine now represents not just defense, but potential counterattack momentum. Another notable development from this battle was the use of Western provided cluster munitions and precision-guided rockets. These weapons, controversial as they are, have proven extremely effective against dense concentrations of Russian troops and vehicles. The combination of such firepower and local intelligence created devastating kill zones. Russian soldiers reportedly described the area as hell on earth, with nowhere to hide from Ukrainian strikes. The humanitarian cost, however, remains severe. The constant shelling has destroyed large sections of infrastructure in and around Pokrovsk. Civilians were forced to flee in the midst of fighting, and humanitarian agencies are struggling to provide aid. Yet despite the destruction, many Ukrainians see the victory as a symbol of hope, proof that they can defend their homeland and push the invaders back, no matter how strong the opponent. From a geopolitical perspective, this defeat further isolates Russia. As allies like North Korea and Iran provide limited support, it's becoming evident that Moscow cannot rely on large-scale reinforcements or modern equipment. Sanctions continue to cripple its ability to produce advanced weapons, forcing reliance on older models and improvised equipment. Ukraine, in contrast, keeps improving its arsenal, receiving advanced drones, precision missiles, and training that make its forces more efficient and coordinated. The collapse at Pokrovsk might also have ripple effects on other fronts. If Russian morale and resources continue to decline, Ukrainian forces could capitalize on the momentum to retake more territory in Donetsk and even push toward occupied regions further east. Already, reports suggest that Russian troops in neighboring sectors are showing signs of disorganization and low morale, Some have even begun retreating preemptively to avoid encirclement. For many military observers, Pokrovsk has become a textbook example of modern asymmetric warfare where superior intelligence, mobility, and precision can defeat a numerically superior but poorly organized force. It demonstrates how warfare has evolved beyond sheer numbers and firepower. Drones, satellites, and electronic warfare are now the defining tools of success. Ukraine's ability to integrate all these elements effectively makes its defense formidable. In the aftermath of the battle, satellite images show burn, tout Russian convoys stretching for kilometers. The scale of destruction is so severe that analysts compare it to the disastrous Russian retreat from Kharkiv in 2022. Once again, Russia's military has underestimated Ukraine's resolve and overestimated its own capabilities. It's a pattern that continues to haunt the Kremlin's war strategy. As the news of the defeat spread, pro-Russian bloggers and analysts were furious. Many criticized the Ministry of Defense for incompetence, claiming that corrupt officers and poor planning are destroying the army from within. Some even dared to question the leadership of Putin himself, calling this war a strategic black hole. These cracks within Russia's propaganda machine show that internal confidence is fading fast. Ukraine, on the other hand, has been skillfully managing its information warfare. The release of battlefield footage, soldier testimonies, and successful strike videos not only boosts domestic morale, but also strengthens the image of Ukraine as a resilient, capable nation fighting for survival. The psychological dimension of this victory is as important as the tactical one. In the long term, the Pokrovsk battle could become a turning point. It exposes Russia's inability to adapt, highlights the effectiveness of Western support for Ukraine, and reinforces the growing sense that the Kremlin's war goals are slipping further out of reach. For every tank destroyed and every failed offensive, Russia is paying a price it can no longer afford in lives, in morale, and in international credibility. As we look at the broader picture, it's clear that this war is entering a new phase. Russia's resources are stretched thin, its logistics are crumbling, and its troops are exhausted. Meanwhile, Ukraine continues to modernize and gain experience, learning and adapting with every battle. The difference between the two armies is becoming more visible with each passing week. Pokrovsk stands as proof that determination, intelligence, and innovation can triumph over brute force. The Russian army's catastrophic defeat there is more than just a tactical failure. It's a symbol of a declining empire struggling to sustain an unwinnable war. For Ukraine, it's a step closer to reclaiming what was lost. For Russia, it's another painful reminder that the cost of aggression only grows heavier with time. The world is watching as the battle lines continue to shift, but one thing is certain. Pokrovsk will be remembered as one of the defining moments of this conflict, where courage, strategy, and resilience turned the tide against overwhelming odds.